Pendientes de esta alerta democrática en España, con la mirada puesta en Estados Unidos, hoy pendientes de Donald Trump. Escuchaban hace escasos minutos cómo habla, cómo no descarta una insurrección. Volvemos a escuchar de nuevo a Donald Trump.
Their states, and FEMA was extremely responsive, and they've all been very happy. I think, Mr. President, you even spoke to one of those governors this morning, who is very happy, and the Missouri governor as well, who is very happy. As soon as something happens in their state, I'm in direct communication with the governors to make sure they have what they need, but also making sure that they have the ability to make decisions to respond to the people that live in their states.
Thank you very much. Great job, everybody. So we want to wean off of FEMA, and we want to bring it down to the state level. A little bit like education, we're moving it back to the states so the governors can handle it. That's why they're governors now. If they can't handle it, they shouldn't be governor. But these governors can handle it, and they'll work in conjunction with other governors. They'll give each other a hand. But the FEMA thing has not been a very successful experiment. Very, very expensive, and it doesn't get the job done. You saw what happened in North Carolina under the past administration. And when we got in, we did a great job for North Carolina, brought it back, but it was a disaster, FEMA. And it has not worked out well. It's extremely expensive. And again, when you have a tornado or a hurricane or you have a problem of any kind in a state, that's what you have governors for. They're supposed to fix those problems. And it's much more local, and they'll develop a system, and I think it'll be a great system. And also when it comes to forest fires. So for years I've been meeting with heads of other countries, and they are forest countries. They call themselves forest, Austria and others. And they say, we're a forest nation, we live in a forest, and they don't have forest fires. And in one case, he said, you know, our trees are much more flammable than California, but we don't have forest fires because we clean the floor, we sweep the floor of leaves, of dead debris, of trees that fall, because after 18 months, a tree is like it's like tinder wood, and it goes up, it virtually explodes. Well, we don't take the trees out. California is a disaster, what they've done in California. They don't do anything. And if you did, you almost would not have forest fires. And you could say in theory, you shouldn't have any forest fires. And we spend billions and billions of dollars a year because people don't clean the forests. And we're going to clean the forests. We're going to start cleaning them. We're going to get rid of dead wood. The environmentalists say, oh no, let it regenerate. It doesn't regenerate. It just sits there and it usually catches fire. And we're going to have a whole new system, and it's called forest management. And if you look at some of these countries in Europe and other places that literally live in forests, very flammable forests, and they don't have problems. And they call me, they don't even know how it's possible that we can have the fires that we have. And the people behind me know that very well, and we're going to start working on that system. And we're going to save a lot of trees. We're also going to cut down trees and replant new trees. And that whole industry is going to be growing because we don't need the help of anybody. We have just about more, or as much, but more than almost anybody else in terms of lumber and wood. So we're going to be doing some great work having to do with forest fires. It's going to start effective, really it started a few months ago, and it's forest management. And Doug, I think you're really the head of that. Interiors, I guess you're the largest landlord perhaps anywhere in the world, I understand. That's a nice position. You may want to just give a few words on the cleaning of the floor of the forests.
Well, happy to do that. And of course, as President Trump had said, yes, between Interior and Forest Service, it was just part of USDA, 700 million acres of surface area, much of that is in forest land. That is a tremendous resource. It's part of America's balance sheet. When we let it burn, then we actually have to spend money coming through FEMA and other places. So we spend taxpayer dollars cleaning up a mess that could have been prevented. Under President Trump, when we get back into the timber business, which up to 30 years ago, we were one of the great timber producers in the world. The communities thrived in these rural communities. We had lumber mills, we had manufacturing, we had furniture makers in this country. All of that went away when we stopped harvesting our own timber. And today we import about as much timber as we used to harvest ourselves. If we can get back in the timber business, that can help on the balance of trade, reduce imports from foreign countries, and have American jobs. But to make that all happen, again, under President Trump's leadership, we have to get back in the timber business and get back in the game. And when we do that, we have to make sure that we're doing prevention, not just fighting fires after they all get out of control. And so again, working with OMB and others to make sure that we've got the budget for doing the prevention work and the forest management upfront reduces the expense and the cost on the back end of fighting these massive fires. But again, coordinating across all of our 5 different major firefighting groups today, it's like having 5 generals in the field. They may have different strategies and different tactics. They even have different pay levels. Brooke and I are working to make sure that regardless of which service and branch that you're in, that you're going to have similar pay, that we're going to have everybody equipped with the right technology to protect them when they're out in the field. Just basic stuff that they don't have today that we were giving our military 20 years ago in terms of, and then using technology to be able to identify fires when they first start. I mean, with infrared, satellite, drones, I mean, there's technology where we can pick out a fire when it just barely begins and it costs us nothing to put it out, versus when it scales up and becomes these massive fires that endanger communities, lives, and our firefighters. So President Trump, of course, has got a common sense strategy. He's empowering all of the leadership that's standing up here today for us to go get this job done. It's going to get America back in the timber business. We're going to put out fires when they're small and as opposed to when we can't control them when they're large. And we're going to have revenue coming into the federal government from those timber sales, as opposed to in those timber leases to the private companies, as opposed to revenue going out through FEMA after the fact when we're cleaning up a mess. So the whole thing makes complete sense. And Brooke and I and Christy and Russ, we're all excited to go out and implement the President's vision.
And we have some of the best timber anywhere in the world, and we don't use it. We freed it up. Lee Zeldin's done an incredible job in that regard, from environmental restrictions that are ridiculous. And a lot of it's been freed up. The rest of it's being freed up. Some areas will continue to protect, but we're going to be freeing up most of it. And again, we have some of the best in the world. And when I hear you say that we lost more in fires than we produce, is so crazy, because we shouldn't lose very much at all. I mean, I could say we shouldn't lose any if it was perfect, but it should not be ever like what we've seen. We're sending billions of dollars to California all the time because obviously in California they are not doing a good job in any way, shape, or form, any other thing either. So with that, I'm heading to Fort Bragg right now. I think the helicopter's landing as we speak. But if you want, we'll take a few questions.
Mr. President, will you invoke the Insurrection Act to deal with the situation in California?
If there's an insurrection, I would certainly invoke it. We'll see. But I can tell you last night was terrible. The night before that was terrible. We have, as you've seen, it was on most of your networks, people with big, heavy hammers pounding the concrete and pounding curbs, pounding it, breaking up, and handing these big chunks of concrete to people. And they were taking that concrete, going up on bridges and dropping it into the roof of a car. They were throwing it at our police. They were throwing it at our soldiers that are there. And we got it stopped, and we have them in custody right now. Look, if we didn't get involved, right now, Los Angeles would be burning, just like it was burning a number of months ago with all the houses that were lost. Los Angeles right now would be on fire, and we have it in great shape. We're not playing around.
How will you determine whether or not there is an insurrection?
Well, you take a look at what's happening. I mean, I could tell you there were certain areas of Los Angeles that you could have called it an insurrection. It was terrible. But these are paid insurrectionists. These are paid troublemakers. They get money. And when you take a look at what they do, where they show up and everyone's saying, what's he doing? He's pounding the curbs. This one guy's pounding the curb, breaking the curb, and handing big pieces of granite. In some cases, it's granite and concrete to other people. And they're running out with it. And then we watch the other people, and they try and throw it into the face of the soldiers, throw it into the face of the police, and they hurt some people very badly. They go up on bridges, they drop it down on the cars as the cars are moving. They're not breaking the curb because they're doing a demolition service. They're breaking it to hand out to people as a weapon. It's bad stuff. I've never seen that before.
Mr. President, how soon do you want to see FEMA eliminated? And what's your message to the governors about how much more of an expense is going to fall to states.
Yeah,
for disaster
well, it's not going to be
response.
so much the states. We're going to give out less money. We're going to give it out directly. It'll be from the president's office. We'll have somebody here. Could be Homeland Security, but we're going to give it out through a method where it's given out. As an example, I just gave out $71 million to a certain state. They were looking to do about 120. They were very happy with the 71 million. We did a little cutting, and they were very happy with it. So we're going to do it much differently. We think after this, Christy, I'd say after the hurricane season, we'll start phasing it out.
Yes, sir. We set up a FEMA council over the next couple of months. We'll be working on reforms and what FEMA will look like in the future as a different agency, as under the Department of Homeland Security, to the president's vision. And it will empower governors to go out and respond to emergency situations. And that what the president does best is to make sure that the taxpayers are only fulfilling the need to which is appropriate, and that people are responsible to respond to their own people closest to home. So
If
it's
a certain state, as an example, gets hit by a hurricane or tornado, that's what a governor should be able to handle it. And frankly, if they can handle it, the aftermath, then maybe they shouldn't be governor.
And Mr. President, when is the last time you spoke with Governor Newsom?
A day ago. Called him up to tell him, got to do a better job. He's done a bad job, causing a lot of death and a lot of potential death. If we didn't send out the National Guard, and last time we gave him a little additional help, you would have, Los Angeles would be burning right now. Los Angeles would be not a lot different than what you saw take place in California and Los Angeles just a little while ago. And, you got to remember, we have the Olympics coming. And we don't want people looking at Los Angeles like it would have been. It would have been bad. Last night they had total control. If we didn't have the military in there, the National Guard, and then we also sent in some Marines. We had some bad people. We have people, they look in your face and they spit right in your face. They're animals. And these are paid insurrectionists. These are paid troublemakers. They're agitators. They're paid. Do you think somebody walks up to a curb and starts hammering pieces out, has all the equipment necessary, and starts handing it out to people to use as a weapon? These are paid insurrectionists or agitators or troublemakers. You can call it whatever you want. And we ended it, and we have in custody some very bad people. Some very bad people.
Mr. President.
Did you see the guy throwing the rocks at the police cars as they went by and crushing their windows and endangering our police? We're not going to let that happen, yeah.
Pardon me, Mr. President, on those Marines, Governor Newsom has described them as political pawns. I'm curious for your reaction to that and what you see as the Marines' role and what are their rules of engagement?
All I want is safety. I just want a safe area. Los Angeles was under siege until we got there. The police were unable to handle it. You can speak to the chief. He said it on television 3 nights ago. He said, this is more than we can handle. They said that. And the LA police, I know a lot of the police in LA, they're great people, but they're given instructions not to do this, not to do that. But in this case, they were trying their best. They were not able to handle it. It was out of control. When we got there, and you have to remember, I've been here before, and I went right by every rule, and I waited for governors to say, send in the National Guard. They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it, and they just wouldn't do it. It kept going on and on. Got worse and worse. And in Minneapolis, that city was burning down 7 days. And I said, I don't care. The governor, who's a governor that just happened to be running for vice president, you talk about an incompetent governor. He's an incompetent person. That he was picked. Well, I was actually very happy he was picked for other reasons. But this guy wouldn't call the National Guard. And we ultimately just sent in the National Guard. We stopped it. But that was after 7 days. And I said to myself, if that stuff happens again, we've got to make faster decisions because they don't want to do it. The radical left, it's usually radical left, and it's usually governors that are Democrat, and they don't want to call them in. They don't want to save lives. They don't want to save property. They don't want to call them in. I don't know what it is. We sent them in, not early, we sent them in late as far as I'm concerned. But big problems, as you know, 3 nights ago, big problems were ensuing. If we didn't send in the National Guard quickly, right now, Los Angeles would be burning to the ground.
The Marines, a lot of people think an escalatory step, but these are guys who fight wars. Are you at all concerned that things could get out of hand with Marines?
When I see people throwing concrete into cars, when I see people, the kind of people that I saw on your network doing danger to the police and to the military and to the National Guard, no, it's okay. You know, you start running out of people. When you have 2,000 people from a National Guard standpoint, we have a very big military. But the National Guard, they needed a little extra help. And we sent them a little, and we did a great job last night. We had, well, you got a lot of cars go up in smoke and flame, and you had a lot of bad scenes, but it was pretty minor by comparison. This morning it's very calm. We'll see what happens later. But they know if they go there, they're not going to get anywhere because we have the National Guard there. We backed it up with a number of Marines, yeah.
Mr. President, do you agree with Governor Abbott soon signing legislation to mandate the 10 Commandments in school classrooms?
Having to do with what?
Governor Abbott is soon going to sign legislation to mandate displays of the 10 Commandments in school classrooms. Do you support him?
I have to take a look at it. I'm going to have to look at it.
Will the National Guard be in California indefinitely? How long will they be there until you think?
Until there's no danger. It's easy. Look, it's common sense. You ask me that question. When there's no danger, they'll leave. You would have had a horrible situation had I not sent them in. Horrible. You'd be reporting on a lot of death and a lot of destruction that's not going to take place. I think if you look, every night it got less and less. They were met with very strong force, the bad people, the bad, sick people that do what they do. But these are paid people in many cases, not in all cases, but in many cases. And they really are, they're agitators.
I was wondering if you had any response to Mexican President Sheinbaum, who condemned the violence there. Have you been in touch with her at all?
Said what?
I was wondering if you had any response to what Mexican President Claudine Sheinbaum said. In
What'd she say?
She condemned the violence in LA.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah. Have you been in touch with her at all?
Well, you think I don't condemn it? I condemn the violence in LA, ladies and gentlemen, but I also stopped the violence in LA. And by doing what I did, I stopped the violence in LA. And that would have been, I think, maybe I'd ask Christie to speak to that. That would have been an unbelievable tragedy. We would be talking, I don't know that would even be here right now. It would have been so bad. I'd probably maybe be out there. I don't know, but Christie, could you speak to that?
Absolutely. So in 2020, I was a governor of a neighboring state to Tim Walz and watched him let his city burn. And the president and I have talked about this in the past, and he was not going to let that happen to another city and to another community where a bad governor made a bad decision. So Claudia Sheinbaum came out and encouraged more protests in LA, and I condemn her for that. She should not be encouraging violent protests that are going on. If people are allowed to peacefully protest, but the violence that we're seeing is not acceptable, and it's not going to happen in America. This president is standing up for the average American who wants to walk their child to school every day safely, run their small business, and provide for their families. That's the action that he's taking. He has every authority under the Constitution to send these National Guard under Title X into these communities and make sure that operations go smoothly, that law enforcement officers are protected, that they can continue to do their work without fear of being injured or killed or disrespected, and that they can go home to their families at night. So I'm incredibly proud of the president for activating the National Guard and for sending in these Marines, because these Marines are specifically trained to meet the need that we have on the ground in LA right now. And Governor Newsom has done a disservice to the state of California for many years. The people there should never elect him into a leadership position ever again. He clearly
cannot. The governor's a nice guy, but he's grossly incompetent. When it comes to his railroad that he's building, where it's like 30 times over budget, nobody's ever seen anything like it. Now it doesn't even go to San Francisco and LA. It's way short of it. After years of work and overruns like nobody's, those contractors are some of the wealthiest people in the world, I guarantee you that, because that money goes to those contractors. They just did a number on the wallet of the people of California. That train, you should look at that train. That is the greatest. I've never seen cost overruns. I've seen cost overruns and great incompetence over my life. I've never seen anything like that.
Mr. President, these protests obviously started in reaction to these large-scale ICE operations in Los Angeles. Should people expect to see similar operations in the rest of the country?
Yeah.
And will similar protests see similar response?
As you know, we're moving murderers out of our country that were put here by Biden or the auto pen. The Autopen really did. I mean, the people, whether it's Lisa Monaco or whoever operated the Autopen, these are criminals. The people are criminals that allowed these criminals into our country. And I don't think that Biden knew what the hell he was doing. I don't think he even knew about it. But when they opened up our borders for the whole world to come in, yeah, we're going to get them out. We're getting them out. We're starting to get acknowledgement from the courts that, you know, there's a system. They come in without courts and they go out, they want trials and everything else. I think that's starting to work out now. Judges are starting to see what a terrible situation it is. Many of those people that you saw on television last night are criminals that were allowed into our country by Biden. And they want to stay. And we don't want them. And they come from jails, and they come from mental institutions, and they come from all over the world, not just South America. And we're not going to let them stay. And this is the first, perhaps, of many, or perhaps, you know, if we didn't attack this one very strongly, you'd have them all over the country. But I can inform the rest of the country that when they do it, if they do it, they're going to be met with equal or greater force than we met right here. We did a great job. The people, you, Christy, and Tom Holman, and all of the people, Pete Hegseth, all of the people involved did an amazing job. We stopped a disaster. And it looks like a planned disaster, not just, this didn't just happen. They had weapons, they had tools, they had everything you needed. I mean, they were throwing iced water in bottles, in glass bottles, at officers and at soldiers. These are, you could not use the word insurrection, but you could also use the word, these are very dangerous people, they're bad people. They were met with heavy force and they folded. And they may be there a little bit tonight, they may be there a little bit, but it seems to be getting less and less because they're going there and they're met with a very heavy force. And if they weren't, you would have that city right now would be on fire. It would be burning down. The rest of it, what's left over, because the other fire was started because they wouldn't allow water into LA. They wouldn't allow water into California because they had it all shifted out to the Pacific Ocean. And I turned it around. And I told them to do it in my first term, and they didn't do it. We had COVID, and they didn't do it. And I told them to do it. We did it in the second. Now we have billions of gallons of water flowing down. But Newsom should have done this. He's an incompetent man and an incompetent governor. Okay, any other questions?
Mr. President, any message to adversaries as the Army kicks off 250-year birthday celebration?
I just think it's amazing. We're going to have a fantastic June 14th parade, Flag Day. It's going to be an amazing day. We have tanks, we have planes, we have all sorts of things. And I think it's going to be great. We're going to celebrate our country for a change. You know, recently, as you know, with World War II, the victory of World War II, I called up France and they were celebrating the victory. Well, we helped them a lot, as you know. I don't have to get into that. But I called up other countries. They were all celebrating the victory. We're the only country that didn't celebrate the victory. And we're the one that won the war. Okay, if it wasn't for us, that war, you would be speaking German right now, okay? We won the war, and you might be speaking Japanese too. I mean, you might be speaking a combination of both. We won the war, and we're the only country that didn't celebrate it. And we're going to be celebrating big on Saturday. We're going to have a lot of, and if there's any protester who wants to come out, they will be met with very big force. By the way, for those people that want to protest, they're going to be met with very big force. And I haven't even heard about a protest, but, you know, this is people that hate our country. But they will be met with very heavy force. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Let's move out. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
¡Pum! ¡Al mercado! Aquí hay alguien que se ha llevado un dinerico por en medio. Cuidado, que el mercado ayer estaba en los mundos de Yuppie.
Estáis haciendo un trabajo extraordinario.
Nos dijeron todo eso. Es decir, nos mintieron a la cara.
Vamos, que yo creo que ni en tiempos del Imperio Romano habíamos visto algo semejante.
Lo que se podía esperar alrededor de los aranceles es peor. No iba en broma. Que siempre que pase algo puedas poner negocios televisión.
Van a poder seguir manteniendo su monopolio.
El mercado se desploma por el movimiento, por la guerra arancelaria. ¡Entra Trump!
Pero por favor, si lo que hace falta es estabilidad.
Tú quieras estar al otro lado de la pantalla en lugar de en otros medios en negocios televisión.
Y además se nota que no estáis subvencionados porque sois absolutamente objetivos e independientes.
No puede volver atrás y cambiar el principio, pero puede comenzar donde está y cambiar el final. En Luna Sevilla queremos ser su asesor financiero de referencia para mejorar su presente y su futuro patrimonial, prestando nuestros servicios como agentes de Caser Asesores Financieros. Somos una empresa con una clara apuesta por la formación de calidad, la información transparente y objetiva, y por el asesoramiento financiero personalizado y continuado. Visite nuestra web lunasevilla.es o llame al 91 762 3442.
Silver Gold Patrimonio nace en 2018 con el objetivo de innovar en el mercado de los metales preciosos de inversión, ofreciendo nuevas alternativas para que cualquier persona, familia o empresa pueda entrar en el fantástico mundo de los metales de inversión de forma sencilla y acompañada por consultores expertos en el sector. Silver Gold Patrimonio quiere avanzar contigo.
En directo estaban viendo esa señal que nos llegaba desde Washington porque el presidente de Estados Unidos, Donald Trump, después de haber ofrecido unos breves comentarios desde el despacho oval en el que ha respondido preguntas de periodistas, pues se ha cogido un avión, ha partido hace unos instantes ese avión con el que se dirige a Fort Bragg en Carolina del Norte. Esto en el contexto en el que todavía se está produciendo balance, análisis acerca de ese despliegue de la Guardia Nacional y también de los marines en el estado de California, concretamente en la ciudad de Los Ángeles. Ese era el momento en el que el presidente de Estados Unidos, como les decíamos, después de abandonar el despacho oval, después de atender a los medios de comunicación y después de contestar a preguntas de los periodistas, cogía un avión, se subía rumbo del Air Force One se subía a bordo del Air Force One con el objetivo de dirigirse, como le decimos, se dirigiría, como les decimos, a Carolina del Norte. Esa es la señal en directo y teníamos a Donald Trump, no ha hecho ningún tipo de comentario a los periodistas y ahí estábamos viendo ese momento en el que se bajaba del coche y en el que se subía a bordo del Air Force One. Sin hacer ningún tipo de comentario, ya los ha hecho anteriormente durante su intervención en el despacho oval. Ahí están viendo ese momento en el que el mandatario sube las escaleras del Air Force One sin mirar atrás. Últimamente el presidente de Estados Unidos no está haciendo declaraciones a los medios de comunicación en estos momentos de transición en los que se dirige a sus viajes oficiales. Esa era la señal que veíamos hace unos instantes en directo Ahí estamos viendo cómo Donald Trump sí que dirige un breve saludo a quienes están esperándole, a la comitiva, y rápidamente se introduce en el Air Force One. Estas imágenes han sido la continuación directa de esas palabras pronunciadas por el presidente de Estados Unidos en el despacho Oval, donde sí ha dejado grandes titulares. Le han preguntado si tiene sobre la mesa la opción de aplicar la ley de insurrección y ha dicho que la pondría en marcha en el caso de que fuera necesaria, pero de momento considera que esa tensión y esa situación de máxima urgencia se ha conseguido frenar en la ciudad de Los Ángeles gracias a ese envío de la Guardia Nacional y de los Marines.
Y por eso, if there's an insurrection, I would certainly invoke it. We'll see, but I can tell you, last night was terrible. The night before that was terrible. We have, as you've seen, it was on most of your networks, people with big, heavy hammers pounding the concrete and pounding curbs, pounding it, breaking up, and handing these big chunks of concrete to people. And they were taking that concrete, going up on bridges and dropping it into the roof of a car. They were throwing it at our police. They were throwing it at our soldiers that are there. And we got it stopped, and we have them in custody right now. Look, if we didn't get involved, right now, Los Angeles would be burning, just like it was burning a number of months ago with all the houses that were lost. Los Angeles right now would be on fire.
El presidente de Estados Unidos también ha sido preguntado acerca de cuándo es la última vez que ha hablado con el gobernador del estado de California, con Gavin Newsom. Ha dicho que fue ayer y que le dijo pues que lo había estado haciendo mal porque sus medidas, sus prácticas no habían servido para contener a la población. Duras críticas de nuevo a Gavin Newsom después del cruce de acusaciones que vivimos durante la jornada de ayer entre el gobernador del estado de California y la administración de Donald Trump. Vamos a ver de nuevo ese momento.
A day ago, called him up to tell him got to do a better job. He's doing a bad job, causing a lot of death and a lot of potential death. If we didn't send out the National Guard, and last time we gave him a little additional help, you would have Los Angeles would be burning right now. Los Angeles would be not a lot different than what you saw take place in California and Los Angeles just a little while ago. And, you know, you got to remember, we have the Olympics coming.
Más cosas. También se le ha preguntado al presidente de Estados Unidos que durante cuánto tiempo se va a producir ese despliegue especial de la Guardia Nacional en la ciudad de Los Ángeles y ha dicho que durante todo el tiempo que sea necesario. Dice que es una historia de sentido común. En el momento en el que hay una situación de peligro, esa Guardia Nacional tiene que permanecer.
How long will they be there until you think?
Until there's no danger. It's easy. Look, it's common sense. You ask me that question. When there's no danger, they'll leave. You would have had a horrible situation had I not sent them in. Horrible. You'd be reporting on a lot of death and a lot of destruction that's not going to take place. I think if you look, every night it got less and less. They were met with very strong force, the bad people, the bad, sick people that do what they do.
Otro tema que se ha puesto sobre la mesa, que se le ha preguntado al presidente de Estados Unidos, es si las medidas que se han aplicado en el estado de California con ese despliegue militar especial se podrían trasladar a otros estados, a otros territorios, y ha dicho que sí, en el caso de que fueran necesarias. Dice que esos migrantes delincuentes serán detenidos en cualquier lugar en el que actúen.
And we're not going to let them stay. And this is the first, perhaps, of many, or perhaps, you know, if we didn't attack this one very strongly, you'd have them all over the country. But I can inform the rest of the country that when they do it, if they do it, they're going to be met with equal or greater force than we met right here. We did a great job. The people, you, Christy, and Tom Holman, and all of the people, Pete Hexa, all of the people involved did an amazing job. We stopped a disaster. And it looks like a planned disaster, not just, this didn't just happen. They had weapons, they had tools, they had everything you needed. I mean, they were throwing iced water in bottles, in glass bottles, at officers and at soldiers. These are, not use the word insurrection, but you could also use the word, these are very dangerous people, they're bad people.
Más información de última hora, más noticias que les contamos a esta hora. Les contamos que la administración de Donald Trump, el gobierno de Estados Unidos, podría enviar a 9.000 migrantes a Guantánamo esta semana. La administración de Estados Unidos está planeando enviar al menos a 9.000 inmigrantes indocumentados a la bahía de Guantánamo a partir del miércoles, según documentos obtenidos por Político durante la jornada de hoy. Según el informe, se espera que estas personas transferidas a Guantánamo permanezcan allí temporalmente antes de ser deportadas. Los planes, que se ajustan a los drásticos cambios en la política migratoria del presidente Trump, se han realizado en los últimos días y podrían sufrir modificaciones. La noticia llega después de que las protestas en Los Ángeles, que estallaron por las redadas de inmigración federal, se tornaran violentas, lo que llevó a Trump a enviar tropas de la Guardia Nacional y Marines a California. Y les contamos también a esta hora que el gobierno de Donald Trump, la administración Trump, ha anunciado el despido, la destitución del zar de la inteligencia artificial y las criptomonedas de la Casa Blanca, David Sachs. ¿Por qué? Porque China estaría solo entre 3 y 6 meses detrás de Estados Unidos en inteligencia artificial. Es algo que Estados Unidos considera, la administración Trump, que no puede permitirse en un momento en el que ambas potencias económicas están luchando para alcanzar una situación preeminente, una situación de privilegio en esa carrera por el despliegue tecnológico y de inteligencia artificial. Así que esa es la información de última hora. Trump fulmina al zar de las criptomonedas y la inteligencia artificial, pues porque considera que Estados Unidos no está en la posición en la que tiene que estar en el despliegue de la tecnología vinculada a la inteligencia artificial. Y pendientes de la última hora, pendientes de la actualidad, les contamos que acaba de hablar el presidente de Ucrania, Volodymyr Zelensky. Pide que no haya silencio ante la escalada Rusia. Dice que es evidente que existe una escalada.
Сьогодні ще один день обмінів. Повернули хлопців з пораненнями. Серед них і дуже важкі. Це воїни з різних складових сил оборони. Усі вони потребують серйозної медичної допомоги. Обов'язково всю підтримку надамо. Розраховуємо на продовження обмінів. І щодо цього будуть окремі повідомлення. Обов'язково. Завдання знайти всіх наших в російському полоні і всіх звільнити. Дякую кожному, хто нам допомагає. І також хочу подякувати всім політичним діячам, громадським лідерам, кожному медійнику, усім, хто поширює інформацію про російські удари по наших містах, по наших селах. Це життєво необхідно, щоб не було мовчання у відповідь на російську ескалацію. Це очевидно, що є ескалація. Росія протягом вже місяців постійно збільшує кількість засобів ураження в ударах. Це стійка тенденція. І це означає, що в Москві не бояться нікого у світі, нікого із тих, хто закликав до припинення вбивств та змістовних перемовин про закінчення війни. Путін хоче вбивати і надалі, і користується тим, що не отримує сильну відповідь. Вашингтон вони не чують, і це багато про що говорить світові, усім. Важливий крок Єврокомісії, анонсовано новий санкційний пакет. Я дякую, що зосереджений цей 18-й пакет на російських енергоресурсах і банках. Правильний напрямок для тиску. Але ще потрібно наповнити цей пакет сильними деталями. Здатність Росії продовжувати війну дорівнює здатності продавати їхню нафту і обходити фінансові бар'єри. А саме тому треба максимально обмежувати російський танкерний флот, їхні технологічні можливості видобутку і переробки, а також робити все, щоб ціна російської нафти була нижче, ніж вони можуть витримати. Кожен з партнерів знає, який прайскеп потрібен. $30 не вище. Такий ціновий рівень означатиме реальний тиск на Росію. Вони мають бути змушені шукати миру. Інших мотивів там не розуміють. Я знаю, що партнери зараз обговорюють компромісну ціну, досить компромісів з Росією. Кожен такий компроміс – це відкладання миру. Ми просимо реально знизити ціну на російську нафту. Тобто реально наблизити закінчення війни. Особливо я хочу подякувати тим у Сполучених Штатах Америки, хто робить ставку саме на силу, в тому числі на силу дипломатії через санкції. Сьогодні були доповіді військових, окремо говорила з міністром оборони Умєровим про нашу протидію дронам, про захист від ракет, про наше зміцнення ППО. Росіяни знов застосували ракети з Північної Кореї, балістику. Бачимо дані і щодо поширення в Північну Корею російсько-іранських дронових технологій. І це максимально небезпечно і для Європи, і для регіону Східної та Південно-Східної Азії. Чим довше триває ця війна на нашій землі, тим більше зміняться технології бойових дій. І тим більше для всіх зросте загроза. На це треба реагувати зараз, а не тоді, коли тисячі вдосконалених шахедів та балістичних ракет почнуть загрожувати Сеулу і Токіо. Ще одне. Сьогоднішній російський удар пошкодив звичайні житлові будинки в різних регіонах України. В Одесі був пошкоджений пологовий будинок. Значні втрати на Одеській кіностудії. Десятиліття історії. В столиці була пошкоджена навіть Софія Київська. Через вибухову хвилю обвалилася частина фасаду собору. Для всіх людей, хто дійсно знає історію, хто не чужий християнству, будь-яка навіть загроза пошкодження чи руйнації Софії – це абсолютно неприпустима річ, катастрофічна, але не для Росії. Біснуваті з шахедами та червоною кнопкою. І саме катастрофи є сенсом їхнього існування. Більш нічого вони не продукують і по собі нічого іншого не залишать. Треба на це реагувати, треба їх зупиняти. І це не тільки нам в Україні треба. Весь світ виграє від примусу Росії до миру. Дякую всім, хто з України. Слава Україні!
Pues en directo, cuando son las 7:43, les contamos otra información de última hora. Ya saben que se ha hablado mucho sobre el futuro del presidente de la Reserva Federal, de Jerome Powell, al frente del Banco Central norteamericano. De hecho, Donald Trump ha amagado en varias ocasiones con poner en marcha la maquinaria legal, incluso para destituirlo, porque no hay ningún tipo de conexión entre ellos. Lo cierto es que en este momento el mandato oficial del presidente de Estados Unidos, de Donald Trump, expira en mayo del año 2026. Queda ahora mismo justo 11 meses, menos de un año. Pues bien, ya hay nombres de quién podría sustituir a Powell como presidente de la Reserva Federal. ¿Y cuál es el principal nombre que se pone sobre la mesa en este momento? El del secretario del Tesoro de Estados Unidos, Scott Bessent, es visto como un contendiente para ser el próximo presidente del Banco de la Reserva Federal norteamericana, según personas familiarizadas con el asunto. Aunque Bessent es el nombre que suena con más fuerza para sustituir a Powell, lo cierto es que no es el único. Otros candidatos que se están considerando incluyen al exfuncionario de la Reserva Federal, Kevin Warsh. Esa es una información de última hora Y luego, bueno, pues les vamos a contar también que ha hablado el CEO de JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, ha dado un par de claves en materia económica. Dice que existe la posibilidad de que las cifras reales se deterioren pronto. Eso en las horas previas a la publicación mañana del dato de IPC en Estados Unidos. Mañana tendremos el informe de inflación correspondiente al mes de mayo, que se conocerá a las 2:30 de la tarde a la Central Europea y que les ofreceremos nosotros aquí en Negocios Televisión. También ha dicho Jamie Dimon, el CEO de JP Morgan, que si él fuera ahora mismo gestor de fondos, a día de hoy no compraría crédito. Continuamos con la actualidad informativa. Esto es Negocios Televisión.
Silver Gold Patrimonio nace en 2018 con el objetivo de innovar en el mercado de los metales preciosos de inversión, ofreciendo nuevas alternativas para que cualquier persona, familia o empresa pueda entrar en el fantástico mundo de los metales de inversión de forma sencilla y acompañada por consultores expertos en el sector. Silver Gold Patrimonio quiere avanzar contigo.
Mudarte de ciudad es un gran cambio y alquilar tu casa puede parecer arriesgado. ¿Estará tu vivienda protegida? Con SEAC, olvídate de preocupaciones. Nosotros garantizamos tu renta pase lo que pase. Disfruta de tu nueva etapa con total confianza. Alquila tranquilo. SEAC responde.
¿Qué cuento quieres hoy? ¿Te cuento uno de los míos? ¿El del farmacéutico? ¿O el de María, la abogada?
El de Ana, la arquitecta.
Vale. Eres una niña que soñaba con crear los edificios más impresionantes de la Tierra. Se pasaba el día dibujándolos. Sabía que algún día acabarían llegando a lo más alto de cada ciudad. Y que cualquier persona...
Cada profesional tiene detrás una historia increíble. Creer en ella es lo que de verdad cuenta. Arquia Banca, el banco de los profesionales.
El futuro te está llamando. En menos de 15 minutos puedes estar operando con futuros sobre Nasdaq, SP, oro y mucho más con AvaTrade, un broker que habla tu idioma. Descubre las ventajas de AvaTrade y disfruta de hasta 100 operaciones sin comisiones. Registro rápido y sencillo, transacciones instantáneas, operaciones seguras. El futuro comienza ahora. AvaTrade.
Tenemos que saludar a nuestra siguiente invitada, es Elena Domecq, subdirectora de estrategia de JP Morgan Asset Management. ¿Qué tal, Elena? Muy buenos días.
Muy buenos días.
Y el escenario tipo de JP Morgan, la visión general del mercado, porque entiendo que habrá varios escenarios, porque, bueno, pues en este caso entiendo que habrá un escenario favorable, que no hubiera aranceles, un mundo feliz, los mundos de Yuppie, que entiendo que no. El escenario más, bueno, pues en este caso que haya aranceles a triple dígito. ¿El escenario intermedio de JP Morgan cuál es?
Bueno, pues es verdad que está siendo un año muy complicado y que el principal factor que está llevando a toda la volatilidad que llevamos este año, no cabe duda que son las nuevas políticas de Trump. Y nuestro, es lo que tú comentabas, nosotros ahora mismo barajamos esos tres escenarios. El primero es un escenario muy optimista, que la realidad es que casi ni comentamos. El otro es un escenario ya muy negativo y que realmente tenga unos aranceles muy elevados con un impacto muy importante tanto en crecimiento como en inflación. Es la verdad que también le atribuimos poca probabilidad. Y al escenario que le atribuimos más probabilidad es el escenario base, en el que sí que es verdad que vamos a tener un entorno de aranceles más elevados de lo que veníamos teniendo, pero unos aranceles que se mantengan algo inferior al 20%. Yo creo que, al principio del año, yo creo que lo que se descontaba es que todas las políticas de Trump fuesen completamente pro crecimiento, una extensión del ciclo, y al final el comienzo de este año ha sido muy complicado porque hemos tenido que reajustar las expectativas que teníamos, y ahora mismo, bueno, pues nuestro escenario base sí que es ese, en el que vamos a tener pues unos aranceles más elevados de lo que vamos a tener antes, y esto va a tener también un impacto en crecimiento, va a ser un crecimiento algo más moderado de lo que cabía esperar al principio de año, y sí que es verdad que una inflación en Estados Unidos que sea algo más elevada. Yo creo que quizás por comentar cómo hemos llevado todo esto a las carteras, pues desde el principio de año, para tener en cuenta, bueno, pues ese impacto de menor crecimiento y de mayores aranceles a nivel global, pues sí que es verdad que hemos ido reduciendo riesgo en carteras. hasta ahora mismo que estamos infraponderados en renta variable frente a renta fija.
Por cierto, en este caso otro aspecto fundamental, entiendo que el escenario de tipos de interés no ha cambiado en demasía, que todavía se da por descontado una o tal vez dos bajadas de tipos de interés en Estados Unidos, aunque Donald Trump, si por él fuera, pues mañana mismo que hubiera 5 bajadas, y en Europa aquí todo apunta a que habrá una...
Pues nos vamos en directo a la ciudad de Los Ángeles, porque la alcaldesa de la ciudad, Karen Bass, ofrece una conferencia de prensa para informar sobre la situación actual en las calles de la ciudad tras las protestas del fin de semana y el despliegue de la Guardia Nacional por parte del presidente de Estados Unidos, Donald Trump.
Out there removing the graffiti, but this is so extensive it's going to take community-wide involvement. We had launched a program called Shine LA a couple of months ago in preparation for the World Cup, and now we are called on to direct that citywide. We need people from all over the city to come to downtown and to help with this effort. The staff, the mayoral staff standing behind me, represent the best of our organizers and community liaisons, and they will be leading that effort. I do want to go back and say that, just go back in time a minute. On Thursday of last week, Los Angeles was peaceful. There was nothing going on here that warranted the federal intervention that took place the very next day. If we want to look at the cause of what is happening here, I take it back to raids that took place on Friday and the uncertainty and the fear and the fact that families across the city are terrified that they don't know if they should go to work, they don't know if they should go to school. We have people that were detained. We don't even know the exact numbers of the people that were detained. We have people that have not had contact with legal representation, nor have they even had contact with their families. And so there is an awful lot of concern. When the administration started, they said that this was about crime. They were going to go after violent felons, drug dealers, and I don't know how that matches with the scenes that we saw of people in Home Depot running through the parking lot because they were afraid that they were going to get arrested. You are talking about people who are trying to survive day by day, which is what a day laborer is doing, and why they would be considered as part of a problem as opposed to contributing to our economy is very difficult for me to understand. We've also received reports of people who were here legally, who were showing up for their annual appointment at the immigration office and maybe even showing up with their family and getting detained. This is just absolutely unnecessary. People have asked me, what are the Marines going to do when they get here? That's a good question. I have no idea. The National Guard that are here now have one assignment, and that is to protect one building, which is the federal building downtown. The second building, which is the federal building on Westwood Boulevard. And as far as I know, nothing has happened in Westwood at all. So this was not needed. The idea that the administration would usurp the authority of our state government, take it away from our governor, Gavin Newsom. The governor knows that if we put a request in for the National Guard and it went to him, he would comply. There was never an issue there because we were never thinking about calling upon the National Guard. So I do want you to know that the violence that has happened has required LAPD to ask for additional assistance, but not from the federal government. We are a county of 88 cities. There's a number of police departments in those cities, and we have the sheriff's department. And so we have received assistance from the California Highway Patrol. I mentioned the sheriffs from Orange County, San Bernardino, Riverside, Santa Barbara, Ventura County, and a number of law enforcement departments around the county. So with them being fully deployed now, we're establishing a unified command under LAPD and Chief McDonnell, which will accelerate our ability to respond to hotspots when people splinter off and create pockets of trouble. So I do want to thank all the officers who've been working tirelessly and putting themselves at risk to keep our city safe. But the real solution of all of this is for the administration to stop the raids. We have heard that these raids might take place for the next 30 days. We don't know how many are going to take place in a given day. And you just think about the disruption to families and the disruption to our local economy. You might have a mother who goes to work in someone's home.
En directo interviene la alcaldesa de la ciudad de Los Ángeles criticando esas políticas de la administración Trump para frenar, para poner límite a las protestas que comenzaron el fin de semana contra las políticas migratorias en el estado de California, concretamente en esa ciudad de Los Ángeles. Criticaba a la alcaldesa medidas como redadas durante los próximos 30 días para controlar a los migrantes. Y tenemos que cambiar radicalmente de asunto porque les tenemos que contar una noticia de última hora que nos traslada a nuestro país, concretamente a la isla de La Palma, que se ha quedado sin luz por un nuevo cero energético. Un cero energético ha dejado sin electricidad a la isla de La Palma, según han confirmado a EFE fuentes del gobierno canario y del Cabildo Palmero. La caída del suministro se ha producido concretamente a las 17:32 por disparo de turbina de generación que ha llevado al cero, lo que ha afectado a un